Figure-ground relationships. An interesting photograph is one that has a combination of elements to it. There's the main subject, usually the thing that's in the foreground, and then the background elements. And there's an interesting synergy, a duality between the subject and the background. They alternate. The figure becomes the ground becomes the figure. You look at the person or the thing that's in the foreground, then you look at the things in the background, and you see how do they come together? How do they enrich each other's meaning? So in the puddle jumper photo, if you look at some of the things in the background, well, we mentioned the dancer, the acrobat in the background. It's a circus. It's an act of maybe creative self-expression. It's an acrobatic feat. Does that tell us something about the puddle jumper and his life? Is it an act of creativity, an acrobatic feat that he's undertaking for us? A clock tower in the background. It's a little hard to see here, but it's a clock. In fact, I think it says it's 20 minutes after 12, which is an interesting time of the day. Morning becomes afternoon. That's kind of interesting. Also a reminder of time, a moment frozen in time, progression of time, how a person moves through the stages and the times of their life. There's a guy in the background watching the scene. He's behind a fence. And in fact, the shapes behind him, when I first saw this, I said, those kind of look like gravestones to me. But then I was thinking, why would there be gravestones at a construction site or a train station? Apparently other people online have said, yeah, those are gravestones. So we have a guy in the background, behind a fence, imprisoned, part of the dead, watching the puddle jumper making this leap, a leap into water, a leap into birth and rejuvenation. It's an interesting kind of combination, synergy. Also, that person in the background, he's like our double, he's our doppelganger. He's on that side of the scene watching it, and we're on this side of the scene watching the puddle jumper. So in a way we can identify with him. Are we just going to watch this guy jumping across the puddle, his leap of faith, his leap into the unknown? Are we thinking about the own leaps in our own life? Are we going to be onlookers, or are we too going to try to jump across a puddle? There's a Railowski sign. The fact that it says rail, again, a kind of interesting coincidence. The rail is like a verbal echo of the fact that this guy's jumping from what looks like railroad tracks. Again, that idea of movement, of stages in life, progressions. There's a pile of stones. Big, heavy, ponderous stones, stationary, not going anywhere, which stand in contrast, juxtaposed with the fact that this guy's leaping, he's moving. And the stones are right between the poster of the person jumping and the puddle jumper. So it's an interesting sort of fulcrum, this sort of balance between the two. It's that kind of thing that makes a photograph interesting and fascinating to study and to find ways to interpret it. In one photography contest I was looking at, they were talking, it was a contest for decisive moment photographs, and they had a specific rule about the background elements, first of all, should contribute to the composition and to the subject matter. You don't just throw random stuff into the background, you want it to be meaningful elements. But also they said that it shouldn't be a shallow depth of field photograph where the background is kind of blurry. You know, the subject is in focus, but the background is blurry. You can't make out what it is because you want to see the background elements. You want to know how they contribute to the subject matter. But is it possible that blurry background elements might be an important part of a decisive moment photo? Well, okay, so just skip past these here. This photo, you know, me being a cyber psychologist, I'm kind of interested in this photo. Here's a guy at a subway station, immersed in his phone. I can't tell you how often I'm teaching my classes, and students are sitting there looking at their phone, having no idea at all what I'm talking. Even though I'm talking about how people are obsessed with their phones and aren't paying attention to the world around them. And they're looking at their phones, having no idea what I'm saying. Well, here's this guy immersed in his phone, and the background is blurry, which in a way works because he's immersed in his phone. He's not paying attention to the world around him. It's a blur to him. You see the little bokeh bubbles that seem to be coming out of his head? Well, those could be like representations of his thoughts. He's oblivious to what's going on in the world around him, and we're not quite sure what's going on inside his head. There's these blurry little bubbly thoughts must be happening in there. Maybe those are the notes of the music that he's listening to, if he's listening to music on his phone. Also, there's a train pulling into the station, okay? Decisive moment, freezing of action. Okay, this train's about to pull into the station. Is this guy going to notice that his train is pulled in? Is he going to get on the train and move forward in his life? Or is he going to be so immersed in his phone and the online world that he's going to miss his boat? So it is possible that blurring background elements might work well in a decisive moment photo. Okay, this is another one by Quartier. So this is like a perfect example looking at the different foreground and background elements. Right away, your eye will probably go to the boys in the foreground and their body language. We spent a lot of time talking about their body language, which is fascinating. Are they friends? Are they brothers? I'm thinking maybe they're brothers. The one brother's lying down, his elbow is pointing to the girls. And their body language is very different. They're sitting in a very different pattern than the two boys. Are they friends? Are they sisters? I'm thinking they're sisters. And the one sister is pointing to, I'm going to say it's the father. Right? And he's looking at, it looks like a woman. It's hard to make out. I mean, it looks like she's walking out of the scene, which I think is sort of interesting symbolically, and the fact that you can't quite make out who she is, but she seems to be walking out of the scene. And then, of course, we have the family dog in the middle, who's sort of like a fulcrum, a link between all the elements of the photograph. It's a perfect kind of photograph where your eye is going to move from one feature to the other, thinking about, for me, family dynamics, relationships in a family, the dyads, the couples in a family, and how those couples sort of relate to each other. If you're, questioning, well, is this really about a family? Look at the sign. Donnez un peu à votre sang. Give a little bit of your blood. Is it about blood relationships, giving and taking in blood relationships in a family? That's how I like to interpret the photograph. And that's what's interesting about decisive moment. Particularly it's the body language here. That was the decisive moment for Quartier. So I was waiting for just the right moment when the body language kind of pulled the photo together. That was the visual coalescence. And here, very interesting figure-ground relationships.